Hello friends, fans, and curious onlookers. When you go to your local hardware store or big box store and you buy lumber for your projects, you can have a selection of a couple of woods, maple, pine, probably oak, poplar, and maybe if you're lucky something like mahogany. And you're going to find that that's usually 3/4 of an inch thick, varying thickness, varying widths, and varying lengths. You'll also find that that has been squared up or dimensioned for you. So all these four sides are square and it's pretty much smooth and ready to start working with. And you can get pretty far with that wood, especially if you do something like laminate a couple of pieces together, you're going to get some other thicknesses. And if you combine that with plywood of varying thicknesses, you can get pretty far in your woodworking career. But if you really want to take your game up to that next level, you need to start buying rough lumber and dimensioning it yourself. Today I'm going to tell you why you would want to do that and how we get you started. And if you're not interested in taking your woodworking to that next level, or maybe you're not even a woodworker, stick around, we're going to have some fun. And as my dad used to say when I was a kid, you might even learn something. Hi folks, Chris Schmidt, Key West Makers. Today we're talking about rough lumber, why you would want to use it, and what you need to know to get started with it. Number one, when you go to your big box store, your hardware store, you're going to find a limited species of wood to work with. You start buying rough lumber and really the sky is the limit. The species are the limit in terms of what you can actually find out there and what you can work with. And I know a lot of folks will buy maple or pine or something and stain it to the color of the wood they want. But why not let nature do the work? Find those exotic species that are the color that you want and just put a natural finish on them. Oh, some of that wood grain is absolutely beautiful. You know what I'm talking about. Number two, dimensions. You are no longer limited to those 3/4 inch boards. You can buy almost any size you want. The tree is the limit there, the size of the tree. Start thinking about furniture design when you're out there looking at a great piece of furniture. All those pieces, the tops, the sides, the shelves, the arms, they're varying thicknesses and sizes, and it really brings just a whole different perspective to building and designing furniture or whatever you're building, designing, boxes, etc. Number three, and you can debate this with me for a while, but cost. Buying rough wood is much cheaper than buying dimensioned wood. You're going to put the work in. Now, yes, you have to buy some hardware, some tools to get started on this, but once you're there, the cost really goes down. I'm about to release a video of a mahogany kitchen island that I just made, and most of that island is made out of reclaimed mahogany logs that I found after Hurricane Irma that I sliced up on my bandsaw, dried out, and then I was able to use really for free. Number three, again, if you're a woodworker, you're always trying to expand your skills, and this is a great next step for you, more than likely. Oh, that was four? Then this must be five, and this is a bit less tangible. It's the pride and the sort of bragging rights to your friends that you made this thing almost from logs instead of these pre-dimensioned, pre-bought boards. Now we can talk a bit about what it actually takes in terms of tools to take a rough board and get it dimensioned and ready for your projects. If you watch any of my videos, you see me using this a lot. This is a planer. It's a thickness planer. Now the bed on a planer is stationary and the top can be raised up and down. The bed, we're going to feed the wood in, and inside, do this without cutting off of a finger, there is a blade rotating against the wood as the wood goes through. Now before and after that blade, there are two rollers that very effectively push this piece of wood down against the bed. And that is a really good thing if you're trying to get the top and bottom of this piece of wood completely parallel to each other. If you are trying to make the first surface of this board flat, where it could be warped or twisted or cupped, that is a terrible thing because those rollers are going to push it down. It's going to cut it while it's pushed down, and then as soon as it comes out the other end, it's going to spring back up. So before we actually use the planer to get the wood to the thickness that we want and to make the top parallel to the bottom, we actually have to use the jointer to make the bottom side flat. Let's head over there. Folks, here we are over at the jointer. If I was actually operating it, I would be standing over here at the infeed table on this side. This is the infeed table. This is the outfeed table, and between them, there's a cutter head, very similar to what we saw on the planer. The outfeed table always stays the height that it is. The infeed table can be raised or lowered. It will always be lower than the outfeed table. The cutter head here will always be the exact same height as the outfeed table. Notice there are no rollers, no feed mechanism to pull the wood through like we have on the planer. In this video, I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of operating it and technique, but there is a bit of a skill and a technique involved, especially when you have a warped or a twisted piece of wood. And once you get that first side flat, you can get the next side at 90 degrees to it by running the flat side against this fence. You can actually do other angles than 90 degree. This is typically adjustable. Now, as you may have guessed, these pieces of equipment are not cheap. This is sort of a very medium-sized jointer. I have a very small shop. I really can't get bigger. You can actually get benchtop models. Now, the things that drive the price up, as you want to flatten or joint longer pieces of wood, you need to get a longer bed. You can really only flatten a piece about double the length of the full bed. And then there's the width. I can only do 6-inch wide pieces of wood on this. You can get much larger industrial planers that can, I don't know, 12 more inches, I suspect, even more than that. But those are quite expensive. If you can only get one of these now, I recommend getting the planer. If you watch my videos, you know that I haven't had the jointer in my shop for a long time, and I actually use my planer to joint boards. I would take the board that needs to be jointed, mount it on a board that I know is flat, put wedges underneath, and fix everything in place with hot melt glue, and then run that all together through the planer. Then it's going to flatten the top of that board, and then you can use that as your flat surface. The thing to remember there is you need to wedge at fairly frequent intervals because those rollers really want to press down and flatten out that piece of wood as it goes through the jointer. I will probably continue to do that on my planer in some instances. Again, my jointer can only do 6-inch wide boards, so if I want to joint something wider than that, I'm going to use this method and continue to do it on my planer. Well, folks, that's a wrap on what was supposed to be this week's 3-Minute Thursday video. I suspect we went over a little bit, but on behalf of Sophie and myself, I would like to thank you all for sticking it out to the end. Hopefully you learned something, or you were inspired, or you just plain had a good time. Thanks, Chris Schmidt, signing out from Key West.